So a while ago, like 7 years back, when puberty was sucker punching me full force, I started gaining some weight. Now I'm not going to pretend I had the healthiest approach to this weight gain. I was 14 years old and spent a lot of time watching really thin, beautiful women on social media, wondering why I don't seem to magically be morphing into a similar body shape just because, I guess. I kind of figured we're all supposed to grow boobs and contort into a Coke bottle eventually. Unfortunately, this was a time when the fitness world was still full of ill advice, especially towards women. It was still kind of rare to see girls lifting heavy weights and eating both carbs and fat. It's only now, after I've tried so many kinds of exercise and quote-unquote diets, that I found what I truly enjoy and what I believe is healthy for me. But even though, thankfully, today there's so many positive influences online for young women and men, I still find there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes down to how many calories we need to eat in a day. I feel like most people, especially when they're new to the hashtag health life, seek out answers on what and how much they should eat from our good old frenemy, the internet. And the internet has a lot to say on what you should eat, including me, as of today. On this channel, I aim to look at some of the most prevalent fitness advice that's going around in the industry these days and discuss its merit. So if you're interested in any of that, stick around. In this video, I'm going to be talking about calorie counting, looking at things that impact your caloric needs, and talking about some of the reasons for individual variations in said needs. If you're like me, you've always been interested in calories. I feel like I have somewhat of a fascination with numbers, if you know what I mean. Like, if I could figure out exactly how many calories I need day in and day out, and find a way to track, like, all of the calories I ate exactly to a T, nothing would please my type A-ness more. So where would an average girl like me find information about how many calories she needs to eat in a day? Well, online calorie calculators, of course. So the problem with these online calorie calculators is the discrepancies in some of the results that they give you. For example, take a look at my results. When one calculator gives you the maintenance calories that another calculator is telling you are your weight loss calories, it can get kind of confusing and frustrating. Like, which one is correct? Which one do you believe? So the main issue with these calculators is in the vagueness of some of the information that you have to provide. For example, looking at your activity level, aside from some of them having pretty limited choices, they don't really take into account the kind of exercise you do. They kind of just ask you if you're not really active, moderately active, very active, but like, what's the criteria for that? Take a look at this study that reviewed different kinds of exercise and their impact on TDEE. It took a look at adults of varying BMIs and varying exercise routines and compared their total daily calorie expenditure. The study finds that contrary to some popular belief that like getting a few steps in during the day or biking to work instead of taking a car can help you burn more calories in the day and thus keep you healthier, that kind of stuff actually has a negligible impact on your overall daily calorie expenditure. Rather, exercise based in cardio, like aerobic exercise or playing sports, is what actually burns the most calories and what was actually the determining factor in who burned more or less calories in this study. Resistance training, in contrast to cardio-based exercise, actually doesn't have a very significant impact on TDEE. This study does suggest that resistance training is very beneficial, especially for women, and it obviously has a place in a well-rounded fitness routine. But the benefits of resistance training come in the form of building metabolically active tissue, i.e. muscle mass, which helps to burn calories overall down the line, but not really on a day-to-day basis. I know there's kind of a mix of fitness influencers online right now where on one hand they're saying that you don't necessarily have to lift weights as long as you find like some sort of activity that you like dancing or running or swimming, and on the other side we have people who say that you literally never have to do cardio as long as you lift weights regularly. Obviously, the truth lies in the middle. As I said, resistance training is great for building muscle, but it's not going to burn a lot of calories. The problem with this is that people who are trying to burn a lot of muscle might severely overestimate the amount of calories that they're burning on a day-to-day basis, and then put on a lot more fat than they do muscle during their bulk phase. Rather, a smart routine that's well-balanced, that's going to incorporate a little bit of strength training, a little bit of cardio, mobility, is what's going to get you the best results overall. The added cardio might help to offset some of those extra calories that you're building so that you can bulk. Whereas resistance training obviously is very beneficial for your muscle mass, for your joint health, for your bone health, etc. It's also important to note that even though I just said stuff like walking or biking to work instead of taking your car isn't really gonna make much of a difference in how many calories you burn that day, activities like that can also be very beneficial to your health. If cardio is not your thing, going on regular walks can absolutely replace standard cardio in your routine. Just don't expect to burn as many calories as you would doing HIIT or even moderate intensity cardio. Now, none of this is by any means new information. I'm even seeing a lot more people online preach about like a well-rounded routine that includes all forms of exercise. Sadly, mobility is like the little quiet outcast in the group that doesn't get as much attention and is not as flashy. But that's a topic for another day. Something else that I wanted to touch on in this video that's always irked me ever since I started my fitness journey was this idea that for some reason goes around online that your body will adapt to cardio. I feel like we've all heard this one. The diehard no cardio stans will tell you that no matter how much cardio you do, eventually your metabolism is gonna adapt to it and somehow mitigate the effects of that exercise, and so you'll end up burning less calories the more fit you are. But then on the other side of the spectrum, there's also people who count calories religiously, who will literally track like their 220 calorie session on the elliptical and will eat exactly 1943 calories that day because that's exactly how much they burned, and that will mean they're exactly at their maintenance calories, right? You're seeing a trend here. There's always two sides and they're always wrong because the truth is always in the middle. I'll show you what I mean. Take a look at this next study, because this entire study is basically one big question mark. Let me explain. The goal of this study is to see just how exercise impacts your TDEE, because here's the thing. The relationship between your TDEE and calories you burn through exercise is actually not additive. So that means if, let's say, your maintenance calories used to be 2,000 calories and you decide to do an extra 400 calories of cardio every single day from now on, your new maintenance calories are not gonna be 2,400 calories. Researchers aren't exactly sure what influences this relationship, and they suggest it could vary on a very individual level. We can see in these models that exercise obviously does add to your overall calorie expenditure, but the constrained model is most likely a truer depiction of what that relationship is like, whereas the additive model is only true for beginners or if you're just starting a new exercise routine. Now let's go back to the claims of the diehard no cardio stance. I assume this is what they mean when they say that your body adapts to cardio, because it's kind of true. Your body obviously does adapt in the sense that you're not now burning what you were burning before plus the exact number of calories that you're burning with your new workouts, if that makes sense. So in a sense and to an extent, it is true that your body adapts to exercise that you're doing. However, you would still obviously be burning more calories than if you did nothing, even though it's a little bit less than you would hope for. Despite this fact, more experienced exercisers will still easily burn more calories than beginners, yes, even with cardio, simply because they can push their bodies a lot more for longer periods of time. So no, you don't have to be afraid of doing cardio because you think that your body will just get used to it, so what's the point anyway? In my opinion, this just adds to the argument of why it's needless and maybe even pointless to count calories, especially if you have a good idea of the nutritional value of most foods and generally understand how many calories you need to maintain weight. That said, this next study also provides a good argument for why you shouldn't concern yourself with exact numbers. This study took a look at 217 normal and overweight individuals and found that the men needed an average of 2,700 calories, whereas women needed an average of 2,200 calories to maintain their weight. However, this is just averages we're talking about. If you take a look at the statistics on an individual level, the results are kind of all over the place. Realistically, individual caloric needs for women, for example, ranged from like 1,400 to 3,000 calories, roughly. And these fairly accurate numbers, which were obtained by the doubly labeled water method, weren't just influenced by the vague statistics that you enter into online calorie calculators. Because just like I mentioned before, these calculators don't really take into account what kind of exercise you're doing, your realistic effort output into the exercise, supplementary exercise that you do. They just kind of ask you, how intensely do you exercise? Like, how active are you? Which is pretty vague and also very subjective. Like, I don't even understand what they mean by very active or by intense exercise. Like, what's the criteria here? The problem is that it's all so vague, in my opinion. That aside, they don't ask you about your body composition, about your amount of lean muscle mass, about your body fat percentage. They can't know your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, like how many calories you burn just being alive, just moving around, how much you jittered throughout the day. Did you walk to the store that day? Did you like vacuum? Did you clean your house? All of these things have a seemingly insignificant but cumulative effect on your TDEE. They contribute greatly to the individual and day-to-day variations in caloric needs. So are online calorie calculators useless? Is counting your calories completely futile? Well, not exactly. All of these things can have their place, especially if you're like new to fitness and don't really understand calories that well yet. This just goes to say that you don't need to accept all of these things as gospel. You don't need to stress about hitting your calories exactly on the dot every single day. It's okay if you eat a little bit more today, if you eat a little bit less tomorrow. It's okay if you have like a cheat day or a cheat meal, even though I don't really like that term. Your metabolism has ways of adapting to over and under feeding. Since we're on the topic, if you want me to make a video on these things, like how your metabolism adapts to short-term underfeeding or overfeeding during cheat days or days where you feel a little bit less hungry, let me know. I hope this video was helpful, and thank you for watching my face. That's it.
Yay.
I did it!